Good evening, everybody. It's great to see you here. I've given these instructions before, but in case you're joining us for the first time or have forgotten, if you click in the upper right-hand corner of your Zoom screen and go to speaker view, I think you'll have a better experience rather than seeing a lot of different boxes on your screen. I just wanted to share a few words tonight before Tony is introduced about what Tony does at First Pres. He's going to get into specifics, but this is a new position since I have been at the church. Tony has been with us just under 2 years, and one of those years has been during a pandemic. So I want to take you back in time to June of 2018 to the very first session meeting I ever moderated at First Pres, when the session was reviewing a study that they had done by a company called Fishhook. And Fishhook, I believe, came in to look at the church's communications and how they were doing with that. And out of that study, the session approved a full-time position for a communicator. We had a half-time communicator at that time who mainly worked with doing the worship bulletin as well as the weekly e-news, and I believe the quarterly newsletter. But the session approved hiring a full-time person. So I kind of sat on that for almost a year, trying to figure out what it was I felt that the church needed out of this position, and talked with a woman at Trinity English who holds a position similar to Tony's to ask what she does, and just kind of thought about it and prayed about it, and eventually took it to personnel, and what we came up with was Tony's current position. So Tony is the Director of Community Engagement and Communications. And that's a little different than just being the Director of Communications. He does oversee all of the aspects of communications, external communications really, at First Presbyterian, which include advertising and social media and signage. He does not deal with internal communications such as the annual report or the bulletin. But mostly external communication, the website, Instagram, things like that. Part of his job is to create a communication strategy, to develop positive relationships with local media. But a big piece of his job, and I always like to point this out, is to build relationships with community partners, identifying opportunities for the church to get involved and make an impact in the community. And that's important to note, because as you'll hear Tony talk, he does a lot of that. In fact, in our weekly meetings, we talk a lot about that. And then the last piece of his job, a line which I just love, I should say the last responsibility in his job description is this: invite the neighborhood to the church and the church to the neighborhood by engaging with the church and community and connecting groups when appropriate. I love that. Invite the neighborhood to the church, but also the church to the neighborhood. And Tony's going to hit on some highlights of how we've made that happen, especially during the pandemic when we could not invite the neighborhood to the church. So just wanted to share a little bit about that with you. And with that, I will turn it over to Diane Hafner to introduce him.
Our communications and marketing guru, Tony Belton, comes to us by way of Michigan, go blue, but has been in Indiana for all of his adult life, except for college, in which he attended 2 historically Black universities and received degrees from Norfolk State University and Hampton University, both in Virginia. Since then, he spent the last 20 years doing marketing, PR, and consulting for several not-for-profit organizations, including the Fort Wayne Philharmonic, Parkview Health, Easter Seals Arc, Cyclone Social, and the Girl Scouts of Northern Indiana, Michiana. Over the years, Tony has formed many meaningful relationships with local media, forward-thinking decision makers, and community influencers. He's a graduate from the Young Leaders of Northeast Indiana Leadership Institute, Leadership Fort Wayne, and is a recipient of the Greater Fort Wayne Business Weekly 40 Under 40 Award. Since joining First Pres in July 2019, Tony has worked hard to continue the great reputation of the church in the city, as well as create more awareness through community engagement, social media, and proactive and strategic measures that would always give the church an opportunity to shine and feel proud of its work, members, and mission. Tony, would you like to tell us about what you've been doing?
Well, sure, I'd love to, Diane, and thanks for that warm introduction. Thanks all you guys for joining me tonight, and this is the last one, so after tonight you'll have your Wednesdays back for a while. But let's just jump right into this. Obviously, community engagement took a huge hit during 2020. There was definitely community, as evidenced by the success of several hashtags. Together Fort Wayne Love Bomb are just a couple examples. And there was definitely engagement as well, as 2020 saw social media use soar to record heights. But the question is, how do these two terms work together? And how do organizations like First Pres, who rely on engagement and interaction, make our presence felt when we're cut off from in-person contact with the community and our congregation and those who depend on us the most? That's probably a question that I ask myself daily. I'm like, okay, Tony, we're in a pandemic. You're not only just sitting on your couch again today, trying to figure out ways for the church to adopt new technology and the members to adapt to new technology, but I'm also trying to get my 5-year-old son through his electronic lesson plan to help him navigate through kindergarten, to help curb some of the questionable actions and instances that are sure to puzzle us in years to come when an entire generation of unprepared parent-taught kids become our community leaders and decision makers. So I said all that to say that unlike some other departments and ministries at the church, community engagement doesn't stop. It never will, it just changes. And as we saw evidenced by the number of Fort Wayne businesses and the 1 in 5 churches that closed their doors for good nationwide, if you don't change with it, you're just inevitably gonna be left behind. So from the year of yelling that was 2020 to the year of listening that 2021 has become, to the years ahead of reconciliation, here's how community engagement at the church will look. Dear First Pres, 2020 was definitely a year of yelling. Seems like everyone was yelling and no one was listening, and we were truly a country divided. We had anti-vaxxers versus vaxxers, Black versus white, conspiracy theorists, Republicans versus Democrats, anti-maskers versus maskers, Trump versus Biden, science versus the government, Black lives versus all lives, injustice versus the law, white privilege versus equality, and the list goes on and on and on. Still, as a result of all the yelling, Pastor Annie and First Pres were able to use the platform of the church and make our voice heard. We took a stance, we provided support, and we were there for the community with love, strength, and encouragement, just like we should be. Just a couple months into the pandemic, though, came the tragic death of George Floyd, and protests erupted nationwide. We all watched on TV as news story after story and city after city boiled over in violence. But I'm sure none of us were expecting what happened here in Fort Wayne that following Friday night. I was, again, sitting on my couch, glued to the TV, texting Annie. We were just going back and forth in complete disbelief. And all we were thinking is that we got to do something. 48 hours later, we were holding a citywide interfaith prayer vigil in which over 200 people came. We used our digital display sign to show our support of Black lives, which was seen by thousands of people, not just in Fort Wayne, nationwide. That's more community impact. We hosted a series of sacred conversations about race. We love bombed businesses that were on the brink of closing, and Pastor Annie was appointed to the Mayor's Commission for Racial Inequality. our community impact had reached a whole new level. And among all the yelling, the voice of First Pres was definitely heard. Not that I'm trying to toot my own horn, but as a marketer, I'm trying to toot my own horn. We're definitely wanting to capitalize off that. So like Annie said, just as much as my job is creating community impact opportunities, it's also equal parts creating community awareness. I've been able to establish some great relationships with local media. And as a marketer, I always consider it a success when one of the local media shows up to give us a hand in creating some of that awareness as well. I always say, let's give them something to talk about, whether it's good or bad, right or wrong, whatever. The fact that they're talking about us at all means I'm doing my job. So I want to share with you some clips of a few times that First Pres became front and center for the impact that we're making on the community. Hopefully you've seen these as they played on the media, on the news. But if you didn't, you'll see it for the first time. And if you did, here's a nice refresher. So Annie, you want to show those?
I will. So just give me a moment. Okay. All right.
November 1st is historically known as All Saints' Day, a day to honor all saints of the church and the memory of deceased relatives. This year featured something different. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Ariel Cadet. First Presbyterian Church of Fort Wayne honored those who have lost their lives to COVID-19 today. ABC 21's Vince Lovergene talked with the woman who lost loved ones to COVID and how this event meant a lot to her. Vince.
Ariel, that's right. First Presbyterian Church of Fort Wayne held For Whom the COVID Bell Tolls in memory of those who lost their lives due to COVID-19. A bell from the church tower tolled every 1,000 people and rang approximately 250 times. I talked with one woman who lost 2 loved ones to COVID-19, and she says the support was wonderful. That's the sound that rang out approximately 250 times to honor those who've lost their lives to COVID-19. And for Denise Davis, it hits close to home.
The fact that we were all together and praying for each other, it's a huge support. It really means a lot.
Davis says she lost her sister's sister-in-law and her niece's father-in-law. She says both losses have been quite difficult.
Funny people, just, bright, shiny people. Always a kind word and active and loving. And they'll be missed. They left a big hole.
She says she felt that it all happened so fast.
The fact that there was no information that they were even sick, that was the surprise.
After the First Presbyterian Church's service at 11, a bagpipe led those out to the courtyard to Amazing Grace, and that's where the bell began to ring. Reverend and pastor of the church, Ann Eppeling, says she wanted to show people like Davis that they're not alone.
I think it's my role here to assure them of hope in the resurrection, that love is stronger than hate, that life is stronger than death, and no matter what, God has the last word.
Davis says the support is great, and she tries to stay positive through this, even though this virus is serious.
You do the best you can every day to live the best life you can, but you just take it a day at a time. This isn't a joke. This is real.
The tribute began at noon and lasted for about an hour. Eppeling also says they've unfortunately had parishioners of the church lose loved ones to COVID-19. But she says it was her mission to bring that support for those who are suffering.
Give me another minute.
As Christians around the world prepare to celebrate Christmas, churches in Fort Wayne are changing how they mark this holy day. ABC 21's Vince Lovergene joins us live outside Sunrise Church to show us what they're doing. Vince.
Krista, it is still pretty cold out here. The snowflakes are still falling to give it a little bit that Christmas spirit. But some churches here in Fort Wayne, as you can see behind me, Sunrise Church, a little hard to tell, but they are getting ready for their Christmas Eve service, which starts at 7. Now, First Presbyterian Church held a drive-in Christmas in the City service today at noon. Both churches are doing things similarly. People pulled up, sat in their cars, tuned into 100.5 to listen to the recorded service in their cars at First Presbyterian Church. People held candles while saying a prayer, while also holding pamphlets for songs and readings. Reverend and pastor at First Presbyterian Church, Ann Epling, says this was the easiest and safest way for members of the church to gather and worship. And one family I talked with says this is something that they do every year.
We still wanted to be able to offer something for folks to gather. And ultimately, that's what's the most important, is that we can be together, we can share the love of Christ, and then go be that love in the world. And so this is how we're doing it in 2020.
It's, tradition, of course, to go to church on Christmas Eve and celebrate Jesus and celebrate each other. And so we are very excited that our church was offering this today so that we could continue to have some form of fellowship, even though socially distanced, and celebrate Jesus and celebrate Christmas.
Now, she also says her family feels valued and loved that church members and the clergy did this. The service included music, hymns, the Christmas story from the Gospel of Luke, and prayers. The service lasted about 30 minutes, and when the service ended, people started honking their horns and saying Merry Christmas. And if you'd like to listen to the full Mass, First Presbyterian Church will have it on their YouTube pages, Facebook pages, and on their website. Reporting live from Sunrise Church, Vince Lovergene, ABC 21.
As Christians around the world
I want you all to know that while that was happening, Tony was actually on the roof making sure it all worked properly.
15's Josh Ayen joined us in the Wayne.com studio with more details on First Presbyterian Church's Love Bomb movement.
Since last summer, Reverend Annie Epling has encouraged others to support.
What happened?
Local church is encouraging others to support Black-owned businesses throughout February.
Wayne 15's Josh Ayen.
What was that? Sarah eBayed forward her tent to Tom. Tom eBayed the crock pot he never used to Steve. And Steve sold the decanter he thought was a vase to Sarah.
Hey, I'm not sure what's going on there.
Members of First Presbyterian Church stood on the courthouse lawn with signs reading "Stop Asian Hate."
It seemed like the right thing to do to come out here on a Saturday morning and invite our members to come out and raise our signs and stay in solidarity with our own church members.
The church organized the protest after 8 people, most of whom were Asian, were shot and killed in Atlanta. Police have said it is too early to tell if the shootings were racially motivated, but in the aftermath, stories of racism that Asians in the U.S. have faced have been amplified.
The national news and events have prompted us to be out here, but once we said we were coming out, we then started hearing from our friends and fellow church members the microaggressions that they are facing now in their day-to-day life.
Associate Pastor Reverend Dr. Young-Soo An says these microaggressions have sometimes become more violent.
In 11 years, I didn't worry about my safety, but I started to worry about my family's safety and my church members' safety.
Antoinette Lee says in her 48 years living in Decatur, she has not experienced racism, but she believes that much of the aggression that has happened against Asian people in the past year has been because of the coronavirus pandemic and its ties to China.
I do believe the majority of people, if they express in violence, it's because of pandemic. And My wish is as soon as the pandemic is over, I hope we can go back to our peaceful way.
The group says that they have not heard of any violent instances happening in the Fort Wayne area, but that they felt pulled to speak out before it could become an issue.
If we did not say anything, the situation will be getting worse and worse. So this is time to say something.
Jesus taught us that love is the strongest method or way of living. The violence won't do, and it will harm people.
In Fort Wayne, Britt Soleil, Wayne 15 News.
Tony, I can try and get back to the love bomb one if you want. I don't know what was going on there.
It's up to you. You don't have to.
Okay, all right.
I'll just tell it, like, again, not to toot my own horn, but we do have a great track record with the media in Fort Wayne. And so if you do want to go and check out the Love Bomb segment, if you missed it before, you can go to the news station's websites, all of them, Wayne TV, ABC 21 and Fox, and just search for First Presbyterian Church. And there are dozens and dozens of news clips about us that you can just go through and check out. Sometimes I do, and I'll stroll down memory lane just to sort of give myself a reminder. But that's there for you if you want to do that. So thanks, Amy. Continuing, moving on, 2020 was also very reactionary for us. We know that we wouldn't have normally liked to be in that position, but if it weren't for the bad, the good may have looked entirely different. I always looked at the pandemic as an opportunity. And so church attendance numbers have never been higher, albeit online attendance, but now we're streamed in 50 states weekly. We're weekly streamed in 50 states, whereas pre-pandemic, that number was about 5. We've gained new members who were exposed to us by watching past sermons on television, on cable channels 55 and 21. Our social media following has grown by more than 100%. We're currently almost at 2,000 followers on Facebook alone, and that is from not just Fort Wayne, but people all over the country. Our Google Analytics show that website traffic is increasing with each passing week, and along with new visitors to our site weekly. So people are definitely checking us out. And since the pandemic, our impact has not just been on our community, but because of this, our technology and our live streaming, we're able to make an impact nationwide. Fun fact, our live stream page is our #1 viewed page on our site, followed by our past sermons. And I'm always surprised every time I look that our 3rd most viewed page is our staff page. So people are curious as to who we are, I guess, as well. So moving ahead to 2021, which has sort of become the year of listening. We're asking those tough questions and we're listening at First Pres, and we're also responding to what we've heard and not just to what we want to answer. The Adult Education Committee is taking over the Tough Talks and planning those out for the future. The idea for the Tough Talks is to host just that, a tough talk, a conversation that might make one uncomfortable, that might be eye-opening and might address the elephant in the room. Some topics could be global warming, the evolution of women's roles in the church. We've talked about that. We've talked a lot about race, but from the Black side of things. But what about what that looks like from the other side? A couple tough talks that we've had so far are, they include the documentary Trigger, which was about gun violence. We had a panelist and we had a mother of, she had a son that was gunned down to gun violence on New Year's Eve a few years ago. We've had Politics and Religion, which was with Andy Downs from the Indiana Downs Center for Politics. That took place just before the presidential election. And we've also had a tough talk with Dr. Alton Pollard from the Louisville Seminary with Annie as well about Black lives and theological education. And we just had that in February for Black History Month. So since the pandemic has happened, the Zoom format has enabled our audience to come from all over the country to participate in these tough talks. So we've kind of outdone ourselves again as far as the community aspect, and we've sort of turned that into a national impact. And we look to continue that as well. So also, if you didn't get a chance to see those, the Black Lives and Theological Education, that's on our website and on our YouTube channel, and the others you'll find on our YouTube channel as well, which is another very valuable tool that we've used to continue to reach the community during the pandemic. So if you don't, make sure you subscribe to our channel, and every time we upload a new video, you will get a notification. So that's kind of cool how that works. The Sacred Conversations, from feedback and things that Annie has gotten, we have learned that there is a demand for that to come back. So it's going to come back again in April. This time we're pairing with a church. I can't remember the name of the church. Maybe Annie.
It's Body of Christ, Seventh-day Adventist Church. Nancy Bratt-Miller mentioned that last week in her presentation.
Great, thank you. So we're partnering with that church, and as a result of the last one that we had last summer, Annie was also able to take a lot of those concerns and feedback that she got to the Mayor's Commission for Racial Inequality, which just wrapped up their work a few weeks ago. The love bomb, like that video did not work for some reason, but you can always go check it out on your own. But I want to emphasize that we've had 3 different segments or installments of the love bomb. The first was just called the love bomb. The second was called Love Bomb Bombard, and that sort of focused on restaurants and bars. And the third was Computer Love, that just sort of wrapped up. And the point of that was computer love, show some love and drive people to support businesses online. So I want to tell you that the whole idea came from a meeting that I had with the Downtown Improvement District. We were just casually talking, and Chrissy mentioned how right after the protests, combined with the restrictions on restaurants as a result of the pandemic, that so many downtown businesses were struggling to stay open, and we actually did see a handful of those close. So we were just meeting, and I was like, Chrissy, how can I help? And she just told me about this idea that they had after they saw the success of King Euro's downtown. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's on a one-way street, and they made a plea out on social media that they needed more business. And so after this plea went out, they literally had a line probably that spanned for 10 to 12 blocks, all the way back to the West Central neighborhood, just waiting to get into their parking lot. It was a really cool thing to see. And that's sort of like how the Love Bomb started, because that's what I wanted to try to do. And that's how I wanted to sort of bomb or bombard these businesses with love. And that's how the Love Bomb was born. So it's kind of cool. As the year of listening continues, we're also working with Ferguson Advertising Agency toward a complete competitive analysis. It's going to sort of help to define our low-hanging fruit and our opportunities for impact, and what has already been done in this area and what has and hasn't worked. So we're trying to do some research so that we're not just trying to nail Jello to the wall. We're really being strategic about what we're listening to and paying attention to, and where we can fill some of the gaps. For example, some of the things in this competitive analysis will be sort of like a census. What does the census look like within a mile radius of our church? What are the social media habits of millennials and baby boomers and Gen Xers, et cetera? How do churches like Elevate and The Point continue to grow their membership here in Fort Wayne year after year? And what exactly are they doing to keep those new members and families engaged? Ultimately, this competitive analysis will tell us what missed opportunities there are and how we can fill in those gaps. One way that we've thought of to fill those gaps is by offering something called First Fridays. I don't know what you think of when you hear First Fridays, but obviously I think of a social gathering, a fun time. We at First Pres obviously have the word first in our name, so it's a play on words. We're gonna have First Fridays, and we're sort of trying to create a social gathering opportunity that we hope to attract some younger people and some older people and non-members and members alike, and just anyone who thinks it would be interesting to check out. So some of the topics that we've come up with, and mind you, it's First Fridays, so it will be on the first Friday of every month for 6 or 7 months or however long we choose to keep this going. So starting in August, we are looking at Hop River Brewery, and they are one of the businesses that we have just recently love bombed. We've established a great relationship with them. And the owner, Paris McFarthing, actually his daughter comes to our day school. So it's a perfect kickoff, I feel like, for an opportunity to check out a brewery downtown, do some tasting. It's just sort of like a great social opportunity. Hopefully we can attract some younger people who may just have an interest in, how beer is made, or just want to come and hang out with us at Hop River. For October, we're looking at a Korean cooking class, which I think is amazing because I have not yet tried it, but have been told that on Sundays after church, the best Korean food in the city happens to be at First Presbyterian Church. So I think, why are we holding that and hiding that for ourselves? It's a gem that we need to share. And obviously cooking classes right now are a really cool thing that's happening, and people seem to enjoy them. For December, we're looking at a live nativity, which would be really cool. And hopefully we're gonna be able to do this on the night of the downtown church tour, if they bring that back. And if you're not familiar with the downtown church tour, it's an evening in December where all the churches downtown, get to show off their architecture and their structural being and all the beauty that's inside the sanctuary and throughout the church, and get a short tour. And because we're on that list, I think it would be a great opportunity to, as people have to walk in through the courtyard, have them walk past the live nativity. We're gonna go and get a camel, and we're gonna find somebody's baby and put in a little manger, and it's gonna be awesome. I just hope that it's not too cold, and I hope the camel doesn't like to spit, but I think it would be a lot of fun to do. So then February, we're looking at a wine and charcuterie at Antonucci's Italian Market. I think that would be really fun to do. In April, an improv group coming down to the theater. There's a lot of theater folks in Fort Wayne, and one of the things that we're trying to focus on is bringing the arts back to First Pres and becoming a major player in the fine arts game. I think this is a great way to kick that off. In May, we're looking at a wine and canvas event in the gallery. Like, how cool and fitting would that be? And in June, I finally came to the name Flip Flop Rooftop, because I've been very vocal with Bill Patterson about building me a rooftop lounge on top of the church. And he's like, no, we can't do that. Like, it's a nightmare. And we've tried this and we've tried that. And I'm like, Bill, the answer to how is yes. So I just need this rooftop lounge built. He's still not going for it, but we've sort of compromised on a flip-flop rooftop. And one of the reasons that Bill won't build this lounge for me is because I guess the way that our roof is made, if there are like people with high heels or certain types of shoes, they will go through and puncture that. So we figured if we just give everybody some flip-flops, we don't have to worry about any punctured holes in the roof. So flip-flop rooftops, we're gonna have lights strung up, something really cool going on up there. It may be a poetry slam, it may just be coffee, it may be on a night of a Tin Caps game. So go up there and have a good time and listen to music, and then after we win, watch the fireworks, something kind of cool. So that would be First Fridays. Our primary target for that is non-members, and that's why we thought we should have 4 of these at the church, as to draw on some new people to the building, but to do so in a way that's not intimidating to those who may be first timers, because First Pres is a very beautiful church, but it can be intimidating to people who have never been there before. Another thing that we've got in the works that I think will have a huge impact on the community is a luminary vigil on the 1-year anniversary of the death of George Floyd. So this will be, I believe it's May 23rd, if I'm not mistaken. I saw Annie gave the thumbs up. Okay, great. So May 23rd. So this will happen out in the courtyard. And what we're picturing is a station that's in the courtyard that has, like, we've got bags and we've got sand and we've got candles and we've got markers. And what we want, we're inviting the public to come and create a luminary for any person that they've loved and lost to any sort of violence. So our goal is to get the entire sidewalk out on Wayne Street, like on our block, to be like just every 2 or 3 feet have a luminary. I think that would be really powerful and moving. And the steps leading up to the courtyard and the brick little ledge, we would have there, we would make luminaries in memory of those who lost their lives to the BLM movement, as well as those who were killed in Atlanta last week and Colorado this week. So we would have the name, George Floyd or Trayvon Martin written on a bag, and it would line the ledges. So our goal is to have the entire street filled with luminaries, and the ledges filled with luminaries. And then as you go into the courtyard to fill out your bag and whatnot, the sanctuary will be open. And if you remember during the protests last summer, when a lot of our area businesses shut down and they boarded up their walls and windows, we invited local artists to come and decorate those boards. So those boards will be on display in our sanctuary beginning that day and throughout the rest of the week. So they will be in the sanctuary for that Sunday service as well. So again, back to the luminaries, our goal is to light up the whole street and our stairway to our sanctuary with these lights and these bags as a tribute. And then at dusk, or as soon as it gets dark enough, we will then ring the church bell for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, which you probably know is how long George Floyd's airway was restricted by that policeman's knee. So looking toward the future of 2022 and beyond, the years of reconciliation, one of the things that I want to do is to try to get as many staff people and whoever that are involved with the church more involved with the community. Annie, we're looking at like getting her on some boards related to the arts, equality, or the community. There's been some interest in her joining Arts United or becoming more involved with Avow, or the St. Joseph Missions, which operates the only all-women's shelter in Fort Wayne. I'm currently volunteering with Fort Wayne United and participating on the 10-Point Coalition. I'm on the Advisory Council for AmeriCorps Foster Grandparent Program that's held across the street at the community center. I'm also serving on the board of directors for Bounce Back Indiana, which is a nonprofit faith-based group that provides hope through financial assistance and coaching to people facing unexpected financial crisis. Bill Patterson serves on the board of Indiana VOAD, which stands for Volunteers of Organizations Active in Disasters. He volunteers with FEMA, Homeland Security, and is currently the only person in the state of Indiana that serves on the Presbyterian Disaster Assistance. Carrie Weinbrenner, our resident pastor, She hasn't been here long, but back in Texas, she's involved with Habitat for Humanity, criminal justice work, and being so close to the Mexican-American border, immigration has always been important to her. So I know that she wants to get out there and sort of make some moves that way as well. My plan is to ultimately, like I said, get as many people from staff involved in something that will continue to promote the church throughout the community and also give back in some capacity to the community. So if any of you know of any board opportunities or something similar that you think might be a good fit for someone, just let me know, because that's something that I really want to do. It's one thing for us to make noise as a church, but then I think it's very powerful if we go out into the community one by one and make a difference that way, while doing so in the name of the church. One thing that we did pre-pandemic was we hosted the American Red Cross Battle of the Badges blood drive. We look to do that again. That was in McKay Hall. And I don't know if you remember this or if you participated in it, but we had a great turnout. There's always a need for blood. And it was kind of fun just being a location for that. We are very centrally located. So that's why we were a good fit for that. So I think that's cool. We definitely want to do that again. To continue with the theme of 2022 and beyond, and as far as taking action, we're working on a new campaign called Friends of First as well, which takes sort of the adopted tagline, feel free to be, one step further. First of all, there's a difference between being welcomed and being wanted. And the Friends of First campaign is a way of saying, we want you. We want you, young men who have strayed from Christ. We want you, social injustice seekers. We want you, environmentally conscious advocates. It's taking those causes that people care about and saying, hey, come join us in our fight to stop Asian hate. Or if you're an overwhelmed mom who just wants to talk to another mom who gets it, First Pres has something for you. It's sort of a soft sell and a backdoor introduction to First Pres while fulfilling a need or a passion or a want of a non-member. Of course, the ultimate goal is membership, but as people change the ways and the whys in which they worship, this enables us to establish a relationship with someone based on giving them something to belong to, rather than saying you must believe first. And I've heard Annie say several times that the 3 B's used to be belong, become, and believe, as in like you have to believe like what the church does before you decide to get more involved and become and belong. But as trends have shown us that the order is now flipping, and it's more like belong, become, believe, as in belong to a group with like-minded individuals, become invested in making a difference. And lastly, because of their experience thus far, believe that First Pres is going to be a great fit for you. So that's sort of what the premise of Friends of First is. And we're looking to launch that sometime in the near future, probably early next year. We haven't really figured out a timeline yet, but they're still in the works. The whole thing is still in the works. But some of the causes that we've sort of mulled around include Fight Club for Men. I don't know if you have heard of that. It's not the Fight Club that Brad Pitt does, because I know the first rule of Fight Club is to not talk about Fight Club. But this Fight Club, we can talk about. So you can Google it, Fight Club for Men. It's basically a way for men who want to strengthen their relationship with God. And it does so in a manner that you have to rely on the other people in this group. So you don't want to let anybody down, because you could be letting down your fellow brother. And I've known some people who have gone through this. It started in Goshen, Indiana. And I know some people who have gone through this, and they say the whole experience is just life-changing, and it's totally worth it. So that's just one thing that I would love to do. And I personally would love to go through it as well. Another group that we've sort of thought about is social injustice shakers and movers. we have created a lot of momentum from our sacred conversations about race, and we've sparked a lot of interest from our tough talk about Black lives and theological education. And we just this past weekend were protesting to stop Asian hate. So there's definitely a need for social injustice movers and shakers. And I think that the momentum that was created from the sacred conversations and sort of the subgroup that has spawned from that, that could be, a group that starts to meet regularly, monthly or bi-weekly, just to sort of, do a check-in and say, hey, this is what is going on, this is how we can make a difference. We have another group could be the green team. I know we have a green team, but right now, the earth and the planet is a huge buzzword right now. It would attract a lot of people who, are very much into preserving the earth, who may be into planting their own food and, just sort of taking care of Mother Nature. I think that would be a really well-attended group or something to get behind. Another group would be just the moms group. Like I said, if you're just an overwhelmed mom and you just want to talk to somebody who gets it, just why not start a group with like-minded people going through some of the same things and struggles that you are, and form a bond and a friendship from it. Another group that we sort of we've talked about, but we haven't really come to any conclusions on would be something KLM based, whether it's teaching Korean or something. I don't know, Annie and I talked about it this morning a little bit, but we want to sort of solidify and wrap our minds around, a specific concept for that. So I think that all this will obviously depend on findings from the competitive analysis that I mentioned, but I'm open to suggestions. And if you'd like to help us by being a leader, or if you have any suggestions or thoughts on a specific group that we could possibly entertain, let me know. I'm all ears. Another idea that I have is, and this is one of my favorites, Christians and cars. So I love this idea, and I'll sort of explain it and break it down a little bit. It started out with just my curiosity. One day, I think I was running late to work, and as I was on my way, I got a text from Annie that she was running late too. I was like, okay, cool. But then I started thinking, what's it like to be in a car with Annie when she's running late? Like, do pastors get road rage? Does she crank up the volume when her favorite song comes on? What is her favorite song? Do pastors listen to rap music? What's it like? Like, I was just like, So then I just started thinking, okay, I might be onto something, but how can I present this in a way that's meaningful and purposeful, and that would work for the church? So that's where the name Christians and Cars came from, because I don't know if you've heard of Jerry Seinfeld and his show, Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee. If you haven't, it's a great show. Google it, check it out. But my take on his show would be a car conversation between Annie and a member of a targeted demographic that we want to build awareness with, i.e. a drag queen or a member of the LGBTQ community. Maybe someone who's not necessarily a non-believer, but has had a sour taste about religion and the church. Maybe a community leader or politician, or a white or Black supremacist. The opportunities are endless. I just think it would be a really cool and unique thing to do, to put Annie in a car with a person that's totally different, and just hear what that conversation would be like. And one of the things about the Seinfeld show is these cars are very unique cars. So again, like I said, if you haven't seen this or heard of the show, check it out. But I want to reach out to Sweetwater to see if maybe they'll lend us a very unique car so that, you know, it's not just a conversation with Annie, as candid and as interesting as it may be, but there's also this really sharp car driving down the road in which this is happening in. So I think it would be super real, super candid, and a super fun way to introduce the church to new people. And I think it has the potential for much more than just a community impact, thanks to the internet and social media, because I really think that an idea like this could go viral. Like, I think it's that cool. So that being said, if anyone has a cool car that they'd like to be featured in a video, let me know. It'd be great to have 4 or 5 of these videos. So that would mean we'd need 4 or 5 cars. So if you want to just stop by and drop your keys off, it's great with me. So, all right. Lastly, the Ambassadors Committee. I am the chair of the Ambassadors Committee, well, the staff liaison for that, and we've been meeting over Zoom. We haven't stopped. We've been pushing through. I think in the last year and a half, I've given them 1 month off. They've been tasked with coming up with ways to generate engagements with, I think our goal is 500 engagements this year, because we want those interactions to result into 100 new members. I know that's lofty, but go big or go home. I want to focus on the numbers because they're measurable. They make them a recurring agenda item so that we can sort of gauge our progress throughout the year. Some of the ideas that we've had in the works to get those engagements are a booth at Pride Fest. I think it would be cool to have a float in the Three Rivers Festival. Obviously not this year, but next year would be a great goal. I'm picturing just a float with a huge replica of our steeple, like just pushing down the street. Like, how cool would that be? Some ideas that we had before the pandemic included hosting a half pint fun run, which is similar to a marathon, but instead of running 26.2 miles, because let's face it, ain't nobody got time for that, we would move the decimal point so that it says 2.62 miles. So basically, I'm just thinking of a little run that would attract, runners from Fort Wayne. We'd start at the church and work our way through Promenade Park and end there. Like, easy peasy, but we've now been introduced to a whole new demographic of people. Hosting a First Pres Street Fair, we had something like that in the works before the pandemic shut it down. I don't know if you remember that this time last year, we were planning on hosting the city's Easter at Promenade Park. And then that got canceled as well. And we did the best we could, but that is sort of, because of that, that's where our Good Friday at the Glenbrook Mall parking lot idea came from. I don't know if you remember last October, the ambassadors worked with Jen Reynolds and we hosted a trunk or treat event that literally gridlocked and shut down downtown Fort Wayne. It was a logistical nightmare, but from a community impact standpoint, it was amazing. And yes, we're doing it again this year. Hopefully we'll have some of the kinks worked out, but it was so cool to see like bumper to bumper traffic and everybody was just lining up to come to First Pres. Like, how cool is that? We also started offering some First Pres swag. So like you can see from the sweatshirt I'm wearing, I find that these are stylish and fun and a great conversation starter. People are always coming up to me asking me about it, what the meaning of it, or if they attend First Pres, it's a great way to break the ice. So we will be offering a swag drive again soon here. So you will start to see order forms and whatnot in your e-newses. But we would really love to get as many people wearing cool First Pres gear as we can. Another thing that the ambassadors were working on is a tourist in your hometown day. And we would combine that with rally day. So there's already going to be a ton of people downtown because there are so many stops in downtown Fort Wayne for you to get your passport stamped if you know what tourist in your hometown It's basically you go around to these different businesses on your passport and you get a stamp from each business that you attend or visit. And we want to be on that list. So that would just send droves and droves of people to First Pres. They would get to see our sanctuary. They would get to meet us. And it's just another engagement opportunity for the ambassadors. And what better way than to sort of tie that in with Rally Day also to sort of kick off the new year and a welcome back from summer vacation. The First Friends initiative is where we assign an ambassador to a new member to show them the ropes and sort of help them to become more comfortable with the church. We've already had several ambassador members that are teamed up with new members, and I know they're having phone conversations and they're meeting for coffee and they're just getting to know one another. So I think that's great. So big shout out to Susan Johnson and Dick Floria and Cynthia Scott and Sandra Mergenthal and Kathy Beatty and Chuck Chapman and Lori Satter and Betsy Perry, Patton and Janice Allen for all of your hard work. You guys rock. So that's pretty much what I have prepared. But I just want to end this with a video because even though we've had some challenges with the pandemic, the rest of the country has dealt with the same challenges. And at the end of the day, I just want to again remind everyone what and who we are at First Presbyterian Church, and that as long as we're praying about it, God is working on it. And so the greatest impact that we can have as disciples of the church and as the congregation of First Pres is to just spread the word. So Annie, if you want to go into that last video, take it away.
All right, I will do that. We are a church that is always seeking the heart of God in the heart of the city and want to be a part and parcel of what is going on here in downtown Fort Wayne and serving all of our neighbors here downtown. When people come to a church for the first time or whether they've been here for 50 years, that they can truly be who they are, no judgment, just come. And I love talking to people. I'm a people person. I love getting to know folks, having lunch with them, coffee with them, whatever it is. I'm always happy to take time and meet people and get to know them. I'm Annie Epling, pastor at First Presbyterian Church. We would love to see you on a Sunday morning at 9 o'clock or 11 o'clock. Feel free to join us.
So that's what I have. I don't know if there was any questions. I know that I kind of went long, so we're short on time, but I would be happy to answer or address any questions or comments that anybody has.
I will scroll through and see if anybody's gonna unmute themselves. All right. Diane left you a message in the chat, Tony.
Oh, did she?
Yeah, she said, love the idea of cars and Christians. Tony, I actually didn't hear of an idea I didn't like. You have such timely and meaningful programs.
Oh, well, thanks, Diane. I'm really excited about Christians and cars. I think it would be, it's one of those things, it's like a social initiative that is going to reach lots of people. And it's sort of like another way as a backdoor introduction to First Pres. I don't know of any other church that's done this, but I think it could be very meaningful. I was actually talking to somebody a couple of weeks ago who, it's not that she's not a Christian. I think that just when she was growing up, she had a bad experience with the church and she hasn't gotten over it. So I think that, like, for example, she would be a great person to interview. You know, what's going on, or what can we do to get you back in the church? You know, something like like a drag queen. We're constantly getting messages on social media asking about our inclusivity, and that I think that people in the LGBT community just think that we just don't get it. And that's why I want to do something like this, to let them know that, hey, we're listening. We may not get it, we may get it, but we want you to know that we hear you. And that's where that phrase came from, that there is a difference between being welcomed and being wanted. Because of course we're going to say that everybody is welcome, but then when somebody like me walks in, am I really wanted? So I think that a lot of people in the LGBT community might feel that way, or, you know, an opportunity to talk to a Michelle Chambers, or somebody who has political influence, that their decisions or their platform may not necessarily align with, you know, what we believe, as far as, you know, the Bible goes and whatnot. So I think this could be a really fun thing to do, but a very meaningful and purposeful thing to do as well.
Agree. Yeah, so if you know of a car, I can't do this in my little Kia Soul. Okay. All right, other questions? Nancy wrote, fantastic, can't wait. And Cappy and Bob Beatty said, amazing presentation. Thanks, Tony.
Oh, thanks.
Anything else?
I hope you guys couldn't tell I was like super nervous, shaking in my seat.
I knew you'd have enough to go around. Tony and I do not lack for things to discuss on our Wednesday morning meetings. Any other questions? Otherwise, I'm going to close us in prayer. No, this was our last Wednesday night topic. I really want to thank Denise Davis, who chairs the Contemporary Christian Worldview Adult Education Committee. Thank you so much, Denise, and for all your leadership there, and to everybody on the committee who had a hand in these. I appreciate it. And Tony, thanks so much for being a part of First Pres and for the great ideas and enthusiasm you bring us and getting our name out there. So that's what it's all about. So no need to apologize for being shy. All right, I will go ahead and close this in prayer. Let's pray. Ever gracious and loving God, we thank you for Tony and for the enthusiasm that he brings to First Pres, and for the gifts he has in helping us to get the word out about the church, but more importantly, to get the word out about you and the love you have for all. So help us to share that love with our community, with one another, and with the world, because it's desperately in need of that. So help us to be a beacon of hope in your name. We pray that you will continue to guide us in all that we say and all that we do. It's in your Son's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Thanks everybody for joining us. Don't forget, Palm Sunday is Sunday, and then next week is Holy Week. So Monday, Thursday, Good Friday at 7 o'clock, and then of course Easter. It's already here. So hard to believe.
Thank you.
Thanks everybody.
Thanks.
Good night.